So we are now officially broadcasting. Welcome back to the Busy Webinar. We're going to let people roll in over the next couple of minutes. Welcome back, Jena, to the webinar.
I know. Yeah, it's kind of like BizzyWeb origins, because way back in the day, I used to lurk in the background
Yep.
of the webinars. Trigby was presenting.
True story. Dave also does webinars, and Dave has this whole system which perfectly works for him, but is really confusing. And so Jena back a long time ago actually was helping me learn how to do it. She would run the thing and I would perform, and it was a whole thing. So, but since that point, Jena, you have grown considerably in your role, and now you are one of our most senior and frankly, our treasured content specialists at BizzyWeb.
Yes, now I'm the talent of the webinar.
Yes, exactly. Now you are the talent. How many websites do you think you've written? Because you've been here almost as long as I have, so probably you've been here 10 years.
Yeah.
How would you ask? How many websites would you estimate that you've written?
I mean, a lot. I would say we probably, or I would say I probably do 2 to 5 websites every 3 months or so. So I can't do math, but that's a lot. Maybe let's round it up to 10 websites a year.
So probably 100 websites. And
yeah.
How many blog posts have you written over the years, do you think?
That's even
more than 1 or 2 a month.
That's even higher, because a lot of our clients are at 2 to 4 blogs a month, and we have 20 or so clients. So again, I'm not a math person. I'm the English person, so I can't do that in my head, but I know that's a lot.
And what's one of the most favorite things you've ever written?
Oh, wow. Gosh, now I have to think. Well, recently we did, or ongoing, we have a client, Foam Industries, shout out. They are really fun to work on their content, because there's lots of pun opportunity there with foam. Any pun that you can think of that relates to foam, we use it. So that's more of a general answer, but that's a really good fun one to work on, because
that's true.
I do love some puns. Not gonna lie, I like to rely on my puns. So anytime I get to whip those out, it's a good time.
For those of you who are attending, if you could do me a favor and put in the Q&A or in the chat pane where you're calling in from, just so I know that we are broadcasting and that you can hear us well and hear us clearly. So just let us know where you are coming in from. And also, this is we did compile everybody's questions that they had asked. Kurt from Wisconsin, Amy from Michigan, Little Rock, wow, Apple Valley, Minnesota, from Saskatchewan, Canada. Wow, thanks for joining us, everybody. It's amazing how many people are from around the world. So we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who are not regular attendees, welcome to the Busy Webinar. We are a growth marketing agency based in Minneapolis, focused on B2B services and manufacturing. We specialize in a number of things: inbound marketing, CRM build out, sales enablement, and growth advertising to grow your business in the upper Midwest and around. So our guest today is our senior content specialist, Jena. Thank you for joining us, Jena.
You're very welcome, Trigby. Thanks for having me. That's Jena with one N. Yes.
Yeah, I got it right, didn't I? Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Good. All right. So for those of you who are listening live, feel free and ask questions as you go. If you've already submitted a question, chances are good we are going to answer it throughout the deck. So, all right, first question, biggest question. What do you mean? What even is content? What is that? I mean, I know, right? But for everybody else, is that just written stuff? What is that?
Right. Yeah, we have to get that out of the way, because content is a really broad phrase, excuse me. So generally speaking, we say that content is anything that is not related to design that exists on your digital channels. So this would be your website, social media, email, and that can include text, images, or videos, interactive elements. We've got the little chart here of different types of content marketing. So when we're going through this presentation, I'm really focusing a lot on the text aspect of it. So the written content on your website, blogs, the actual words within an email or an advertisement. But just know that content does refer to anything created that's not the actual framework of the thing that you're looking at.
And speaking of the infographic that we have on there, there's a lot of different things there. So like, and they're not all the same, right? Like writing for a blog is different than writing an ebook.
Yes. Yeah. And you have to, well, this is kind of a preview of where we'll get to, but you have to consider how people are interacting with these channels and how the channels work. So, for example, if you're on TikTok, that's a very short video versus a blog, which tends to be longer form written content. So people are going to have different expectations coming into your content and different desires. So if you tried to do the same thing across every channel, it would not work because you're not keeping in mind what that channel is designed for and what people are expecting when they come out there.
And I'll jump in and say that the reasoning behind having all these different styles of content is a selling question, because so there are all those people out there who don't know you and they don't know why they should come to you. They don't know why they should interact with you. And they all have their own specific ways of how they like to ingest content.
Yep.
They're going to come to you how they're going to come to you. And your goal, conversely, is to talk to them in the way in which they want to be talked to. So content on the whole it's so much more expansive than just putting stuff on a website and calling it good.
Oh, yeah. It is a dense beast, as we will get into.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, all that being said, though, Jena, I have a brochure that I wrote 5 years ago. Why can't I just take that and put that on my website? Or could I just put that in a blog? Because I've read about repurposing content. That's something you're supposed to do, right?
Right. Well, we did touch on this a little bit. So again, it's that audience and what they expect. And I have an incredible quote here that I gave Trigby that ended up in the slide here. But it really is dependent on the medium, and each medium has their own style guidelines, their own way of presenting information. Obviously, if you're online and writing to an online audience, you have this extra factor on top of Google. If you're writing a brochure that is just going to, sit in a lobby, Google's probably not going to, well, I would be scared if they did, not physically come into your office and read that brochure. Whereas if it's online, Google's also going to be reading that. So writing changes depending on your medium. And I threw this out here because a lot of people do struggle with web content writing, because they may be good at another aspect of writing and think that it's just going to translate, and then they struggle and they get frustrated. It is not you. It is the system. I do a lot of content writing, but I could not write a fantasy novel. It would be horrible if I sat down and tried to do that. It's very different. Easy example, think about an instructional manual to put together an AC versus a blog post on choosing the best window AC. Technically the same topic, very different in how it's written.
You mentioned web content as being different. What's different about web content versus anything else?
It tends to be a lot more vertical than other forms of content, and it has to be scannable. Scannable, again, in the Google sense of Google's got to be out there and be able to read it. But also people have to read it. And when you're looking at a screen, it can be extremely physically difficult on your eyes, or if you're using a screen reader, difficult for the screen reader to process. If things are condensed and they're really close together and there's giant paragraphs, So that's why you do tend to see, if you go out to a website, it's broken out by subheadings, there's bolding, there's bulleted lists, versus if you cracked open a book, right? It's more of
Yeah.
that paragraph
Okay.
style.
Okay, perfect. And by the way, again, if you're with us live, you feel free and add questions as you see fit as they come up. One of the next questions we had, which I generalized, is, well, Jena, I have content already. What do I really need more for?
Yep. All right. And next slide, Trick, because we got a handy dandy little chart here with 3 good reasons to produce
Which
more content.
ironically is content in and of itself.
Yes, this whole slide is content. So, big thing is, let's get down to the numbers. So, content marketing typically delivers 3 times as many leads as other marketing channels. It also typically costs less, and you are more likely to see positive ROI. And a lot of that has to do with how people do research and how they engage with your product, because a lot of it is self-serve, which we're going to get to again later in the presentation. But people are doing research on your brand before they talk to you. They're not just going to pick up a phone and ask you, what do you do and what can you do for me? They're going to be poking around on your website. They're going to be looking at your social media. If they filled out a form, they're going to be getting emails from you. So all of that happens before you ever have any kind of direct contact with a person.
Okay. Well, how about this? Do keywords matter?
I
I hear a lot about keywords. What do I need to know about keywords?
Yes. So this in and of itself could be an entire presentation. So I'm going to try to go over this as quickly as possible, but I highly encourage anybody that is interested in this topic to do a lot of research on their own, because there's a lot there. So keywords used to be very important, and they're not necessarily irrelevant, but you use them in different ways than you would historically. So keywords being phrases. Typically these are what we call short tail keywords, which would be things like florist, or a long tail keyword, which would be like florist selling roses in St. Paul, Minnesota. So it has to do with the length. People tend to think, and Google used to work this way, that keywords work like this. You go to Google, you type in florist near me, and the first pages that you see, that means that website uses that exact phrase, florist near me, the most on their page. Therefore, it shows up first. Google has grown significantly in their complexity since then.
Well, part of the reason behind that is you would often see people who would do what's called keyword stuffing, right? Where they would say, for the best florist in Minneapolis, people who are looking for florists in Minneapolis use Minneapolis best floral. And when you read it, they've used the keyword 5 or 6 times, and it just sounds weird. So the reason for that is they were trying to game the system. So now the system has evolved into more contextual marketing.
Exactly. So Google has a really nice resource on their website that I put the link to here, which is google.com/search/how search works. Disclaimer, this is long. Like I'm not gonna lie to you, it's a lot of information. So it's
I think what you mean is it's a lot of good content.
It's a lot of really good content. But I encourage you to dig into this if you want more information about what I'm going to go over here briefly. And the thing to keep in mind with Google is they give us some insight to what they do, but not all of it. So we have information from them about how they rank websites, but we don't necessarily have the specifics of that, because obviously they don't want to put out their proprietary algorithmic information that they've spent. Geez, how long has Google been around? 1999, something like that?
That definitely been a while.
It's been a while that they have put all of their time and effort into. So we know that Google uses these 5 factors when ranking websites: meaning, relevance, quality, usability, and context. And if you go to that page that I linked there, you're going to get a huge in-depth explanation for each of these elements. Super high level, super quick version. Meaning is meaning of your query. So this is Google's trying to decipher what it is that you actually meant to type in. So this could be things like you put in a typo, or you're using terms that the layperson uses, but that the industry does not use. And Google's trying to match those so that it's giving you the content that you're actually looking for. Relevance of content is how good are you at answering the question, and are you a reputable source? There's a lot that goes into reputability online, but generally that's if you are a big website like the Washington Post, you're going to have a higher reputability in Google because lots of people have been linking back and forth to you, versus if you just start a blog and you've got 2 posts out there and nobody links to you. Google might not recognize you as a reputable source, even though you might be. Quality is the very basic. Does this read good? Is this a giant wall of text that's hard to understand? Or can people read it and understand what it is that they're looking at? Usability gets more into the accessibility and ease of reading. So whereas quality is like the word choice and varying sentences and all of those Englishy things that go into writing content, usability would be that scannability that I mentioned before, making sure things are broken up, that there's not giant walls of text, and that goes into accessibility as well. So Google does also consider the design of the page. Comes up to your page, and it doesn't matter how good the content is or how much you've broken it up. If it's 5-point font on a 5-point black font on a really dark background and it's really hard to read, Google is going to ding you for that because that's not readable for most people.
One of the other things that Google dings you for, if you've ever seen like a massive chunk of white space on a website,
yeah,
it's always good to highlight that, because sometimes what people will do is they will put all sorts of keywords on that page and then make the font color the same color as the background, so the naked eye doesn't see it, but the computer reads it.
Yep, exactly.
That's cheating. You can't do that.
It's cheating.
You'll get dinged for that.
And then the final element is context. So, Google be watching you. It has all this information about you. And it might have less information depending on what you have allowed it access to or not. But these are elements like your location, your search history. If you have other Google products like Gmail and YouTube, your purchase history. Yes, it's creepy, but they have access to all of that information, and they will use it to try to give you the content that it thinks that you as a person want to see. All right, so here's an example of how keywords are more useful now for topic creation versus trying to stuff a bunch of keywords onto one page. So think about, these are really, really similar phrases, but they're all a little bit different. And that could help you when you are creating content to address the questions that your audience is likely to search for. So we have our short tail phrase here of bike. Bike is really broad. That could be bike shop, best bikes for tall people. Can I use a mountain bike on city streets or bike garages near me? Think about the person searching for each of these phrases and what they want to see. So somebody searching for bike shop, that's much more transactional. They're looking for stuff probably by them, and they're looking for reviews, and they want to just get locations and go there. Whereas, can I use a mountain bike on city streets? That's much more of an informational piece. They're probably not going to be buying something immediately based on that search query, but they are using that in their research potentially to buy something.
That's a great example of how the keyword bike, if I'm looking for a bike shop, I want a different set of search criteria versus if I want to know just informationally how to do something on a street.
Exactly.
All right, we got our first question from a listener. Yeah, I guess a listener. Janice wants to know, how do you choose what keywords to use effectively?
Yes, great question. So like I said in those previous slides, you want to view keywords more as topics versus specific keywords. However, those are useful in your brain to have when you're writing, to like know what it is that you're talking about. If you're looking for actual keyword research, SEMrush is a really useful tool. Answer the Public is another really good one. So both of those tools have features where you can provide your current website or even a short tail phrase or a couple of phrases, and it will give you insight into keywords that you should be working toward and based on your industry.
Yeah, Answer the Public, that's a free site, which is
Yes.
great. And what that'll do is if you put in a keyword, it'll give you topics and things to consider. So it'll help generate those kinds of. I do want to say, just as a word of warning, that Answer the Public, it's a great site, totally informational. When you go there, they have a very old man who is wearing a thick fishing sweater who will shake his fist at you. And I don't know why it is, but that's just, understand that when you do that, there's a very strange video there.
Yeah, it is a little jump scare. But
Yeah.
For example, Answer the Public, if you went in there and typed in mountain bike, just as a very short phrase, it'll give you some of those longer phrases that people are searching that are related to that topic. So that'll give you those things like, can I use mountain bike on city street, if that's something that people are looking up a lot.
And Amy asks, what was the name of the first site? That was semrush.com.
Yeah.
So Jenna, what do I need to do to create good content?
Well, I wish that I could just give everybody a easy secret and something that you can do, but the truth is that it's a very boring answer. You got to practice and you got to just do it a lot. You have to read a lot and you have to write like a lot. There's no shortcut there. If you want to get really, really good at content, that's what you got to do, or you got to outsource and find somebody that already has done that. That being said, though, I'm going to give you some tips here for starting on your content journey and things that you need to know in order to write good content. But a lot of these are going to boil back down to doing research, going out on the internet, searching for things, reading a lot. There's no way around that. The best way to get good at writing is to do a lot of reading and to do a lot of research. So within that, you need to know your audience, know your buyer's journey, know your goals, know what channels and mediums you want to use, and then create content around topics and intent, not keywords. And we're going to get into all of these things as we proceed.
I want to, from a sales perspective, what I want to add here is that, and we're going to get into your buyer and your specific buyer and how to dial in on that. However, the important thing when you're thinking about creating good content is the answer of what is good is not answered by you. It is answered by your prospects. And so if you like your content and nobody else does, that doesn't help you. You need to be writing content based on, fundamentally, the question is, what problem are you solving? So I'll give you a great example. One of the people in the audience is a personal friend of mine. Her name is Henriette. She runs a great business called From Yours to Mine, which is clothing and toy reselling for newborns all the way up to toddlers. And so when my son was born, I thought, oh, great, we'll buy him some things and then that'll be fine. What I didn't understand is that when you have a baby, you literally need to do half a dozen outfit changes in a day. And you need to have 30 of everything. And you need to be prepared that within 2 weeks, your 5-year-old will suddenly jump sizes from one to the next. And so there is a very real problem of clothing a child and doing so on a reasonable budget. So if I hold up a pair of pants, is that what Henriette sells? Well, on the one hand, yes. but that's not really what she's selling. What she's really selling is a solve to the problem of how do I dress my child effectively in a way that looks decent at a reasonable price. So
Yep.
when she's writing content, that's what she's writing towards, is those people are thinking, oh my God, I don't want to go to the Gap and spend $30 for a t-shirt that my kid's just going to barf on. Where can I get clothes that are good? And then similarly, the alternative to that is the other half of her business is the resellers, the people who are saying, hey, my kid grew out of this. They wore it once, they wore it twice. What do I do with it? Well, she gives them the opportunity to get a little bit more money back and help upsize them. So Henriette's business is a constant game of Super Mario Brothers, where the little one-up thing keeps hitting because you're constantly getting up and ding, up, ding, up, ding. So anyway,
yes, all good things.
Where do you learn more?
All right. So great places to go to learn more. Subscribe to newsletters, aggregate sites. So these would be things like, gosh, I just had my brain Medium. Is it Medium? I believe that's what it's called, is that website that pulls together articles from all over the place. Yep. I will untangle that and make sure I have the correct title, but I believe that's Medium. But sites like that where it's pulling in, or Forbes is another one. Your competition, that can be direct or indirect. Professional coaching, how-to guides, how do I guides. So, some specifics here. We got to shout out HubSpot because we are a HubSpot partner, and they also put out a lot of great content. They're a good one to subscribe to because they're going to be putting out articles all the time about everything mentioned in this presentation. Our own website as well. I might have an inside view on that, on who does the blog.
There's some good content on our website.
There might be some good content. I don't know. You'd be the judge of that. But these are kind of general, so it's going to be specific to you. It's really hard to say, on a high level, where's a good place to go, because it depends on your business, who you're trying to attract. But generally, another place is like where your prospect is spending their time online, which is a segue into our next couple of slides, I believe.
Yeah, so we've been talking about the buyer and what do they want and how do they want it. So one of the exercises that we do at BizzyWeb for our clients, which we wholly recommend, is actually sitting down and physically writing a description of the people that you are your ideal buyer. And I'm going to show you two here. So it's important before I get started to realize that when you are thinking about people who are wanting to buy something, they are not thinking rationally. And I will say that again, because that sounds weird. People who are buying are not in a rational place. They are in an emotional place because they are trying to fix something. In Henriette's example, it's, well, hey, my kid keeps growing out of stuff, or, Thanksgiving's coming up and I don't want my mother to roll her eyes when my kid comes down in a new outfit, things like that. That's what the problem is. So they are coming to that from an emotional level, and they're looking for a solution. How can I best solve that problem? So when we create these personas, we are dealing with people on an emotional level. And you'll see on the screen here, we have marketing manager Marissa. We talk about her personality and where some of her particulars, but we're talking from an emotional standpoint. Emotionally, what does she want? Emotionally, what does she need? What are things that she's frustrated with? What are things that she's trying to help solve? Because those are the things that we can then turn into content. And then what are the key questions in which she's going to ask? Because everybody's personality defines how they ask a question. So if you line all that out, then all of a sudden, then we know how to create content to talk to them. Yeah. And what's really neat is if you look at the engagement metrics that we have there, is that those will ultimately change, because we had two versions of that, but we skipped it. We took one out. That sometimes those change. And when that question we asked earlier of what are the best places to write, well, that really depends entirely on where your people are. It's like a fishing hole. You want to go where the fish are. You don't get to define where the fish are. The fish are where the fish are. You need to meet them where they are. So Jenna's got a great personal example in this
Yes.
instance.
Actually, I do want to go back real quick, Tree, because I just have two super quick important things of personas. So two most important things about personas. One, why these matter, because this is who you're going to be writing your content to, instead of talking to a faceless whatever out there and just putting words on a page.
Great
Anything
point.
that I'm writing, I am writing it to this person. And then the second thing, we get a lot of questions whenever we show these of like, well, how do you make this? How do you find this information? And we get to this point by a lot of interviews. So you want to interview current clients, potentially past clients as well, people that you have identified as this was a great fit. This was like perfect. We want more of these people. And you're going to ask them these questions and questions to answer these questions. So again, on HubSpot and on our website, you can find templates that will give you those questions to ask. So it's things like, you know, in this case, we're talking about engagement. We would have asked a lot of our clients to create this marketing manager, Marissa persona. What device do you use most often and when? Because some people use, marketing Marissa tends to use her laptop frequently during the day while she's at work. And then when she's at home, she's on her cell phone. So that's how we actually make these. I wanted to throw that out there because we get that question a lot. All right. So personas. Wanted to give a real world example of how this shakes out. So this is Dyson's very expensive, very advanced hair dryer / styling tool. And it's the exact same product, but we have two very distinct audiences. We've got the consumer and then we have the professional. And if you actually go out to the website, Dyson's website, look at these pages, a lot of the exact same information is there. It's just relayed in different ways and it's put in a different order. So super high level. Actually, a question for the audience. Ooh, audience engagement. If you want to type in the chat, there is one huge, big difference between these two that jumped out to me the first time that I looked at this. If you want to type below what you think that might be, I would love to hear it, and I will get back to that in a second. But it's something very high level. You don't have to do a ton of reading to find it.
Can I play too? Because I think I know what I think I know what the answer is. So the one on the left is driven to consumers, right?
Yep.
So so a couple of things that are different there is the call to action, which is what's put in the green button there. It's a little bit more benign. It's a little softer.
Yep.
Hey, shop now. And then the follow-ups are feature based. So the colors, the shipping, the warranty, those are all going into what the actual questions are. If I want to buy it, and if because on the left, they're not asking me to buy it yet. They're asking me to learn more about it.
Yes. Yeah. And with that, as not exactly a trick.
Okay. Well, then on the left, what the stark difference there is two things. Is number one is the call to action is much more direct. Add to cart. Buy this now.
Yeah.
So they're not going to talk to you about the features and benefits because they assume that you already know what they are at that point. And by the way, this wasn't something that we put our fingers on by any means. This was literally the we took these screenshots of the opening of the page depending upon the audience. So Kurt answers demo product versus description and price versus add to cart. I think he's about right, but I'm sure there's one thing that we're missing. What is it, Jenna?
He is right on the money. It's price. That was the big thing that stuck out to me. On the consumer side, you got to scroll down that page to find the price. On the professional side, price is right there. And there's probably a lot of different reasons for that. Just taking an educated guess. The salon audience is going to be a lot more primed to spend more money on a expensive product. And while they might bulk at $500, they're probably not going to bulk as much as the general consumer.
Well, there's a difference. If I'm a hairdresser, I'm using a hairdryer 8 or 9 times a day.
Yep.
Whereas if I'm a consumer, I'm maybe using it 1 or 2.
Exactly. And a professional's more used to spending more money on that type of product versus the consumer. So yeah, this goes back to that audience and the consumer side. It's also a lot more image based. That little picture on the left of the lady using the tool on her hair is a video, and there's a lot more of the, ooh, look at the shiny, beautiful hair all over the consumer side. Whereas the professional side, it does have some of that, but it's a lot more of the, here's the price, here's how to order it, and the benefits for a salon owner. The volume is hugely emphasized on the salon side, whereas it's not really mentioned on the consumer side. Because if you're a hairdresser, you're up close and personal to that hair dryer all day. So having a quiet hair dryer, a lot more important to them than on the consumer side. But the consumer cares about the end results. They want the hair to look good and they want it to be easy.
Absolutely. Part of this gets into what we refer to as the buyer's journey. And so we wanted to line item out really what that means. And that's a couple of different things. And so this is a basic example is typically in a buyer's journey, it's in 3 parts. It starts with the awareness stage. That's when somebody says, hey, I have a problem. So the problem I have in this scenario is, hey, it's a nice day. I should really go do something. And then the next stage is the consideration. Well, what should I do? I could go kayaking, I could go skateboarding, I could go to the fair, whatever. And then the decision stage is I've decided what to do. I'm going to go to the state park. How that really looks in terms of, and that's really how people make decisions on the whole is I am aware of a problem. I want to figure out what my solutions are. This is what my solution is.
Yeah.
Now, as it relates to content, we used an infographic from our friends at Excelity in Wisconsin on how this all lines up. So you can see that in the awareness stage, that all those different styles of content would fall into that. In the consideration stage, there's a whole different set of content. And then in the decision stage, there's a whole different set of content there too. Now, there's sort of a fourth one there too, right, Jenna, which is after the sale of the selling validation, which is kind of the customer delight stage to make sure that they continue to feel valuable for making that purchase, right?
Yeah, exactly. We were focused a lot more on the selling and sales side in this presentation, but that is critical. And that would be content like, let's go back to our Dyson example, videos of how to use the tool, tips and tricks, things that you can't do unless you actually have the product. That's not as relevant for people who don't have the product yet and are still looking into it. But for the people that do own it, that would be a value add for them.
Okay, so well, this has been fun and this has been all fine and good, but let's be honest, I don't really need you for any of this, right? Because I have ChatGPT.
Right.
And I have an AI robot that can write content for me, right?
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Thanks for coming to the webinar, folks.
That's it. No, so the thing with AI is it can write content, but is it going to be good content? And I don't just mean good in the sense of I can read this thing, it's readable, but is it going to capture every element that we just went over? And the answer is typically no, because it's not perfect. It's not a person. And you have to give it prompts, and it's going to provide answers to you based on the prompts that you put out. But it's impossible to cover every single element that we went over in a prompt. You can attempt that. I would love to see it. I have tried it myself a few times with generating sentences and paragraphs. And like a person, the AI gets very overwhelmed if you're giving it too much to do at once. Another thing is just that human element. If you're using AI to generate content, so generate like paragraphs or pages, when you read it out loud, you'll notice that it sounds good, but there's something off about it. It doesn't this is a nerdy English thing, but it doesn't vary sentence structure or word choice like a human would. So like the more AI content that you consume, the more you notice that. And you might not notice it, but your brain's going to notice that where you're reading something and it's just, this sounds kind of stilted, sounds kind of weird. It's not exactly on target. So AI generative content does have its uses. And again, you have to keep in mind everything that we've talked about of like, what is the application? What's the end goal? If you want to use generative AI to write an email to send to somebody because it's a lot easier to start there, that's a one-to-one communication. That's not high stakes. Whereas if you're trying to use AI for your marketing, are you actually going to see results from it? Questionable. So some tips I have for using AI, it's really good for writers for outlining ideas and jumping off points. It does a fantastic job with that. So if you are struggling to say write a blog post and you've got a topic in mind, you have an audience in mind, but you're not sure where to get started, using a tool like ChatGPT and asking it, providing it all of that information, saying, I'm trying to write whatever piece of content it is for XYZ audience. And my end goal is to get them to whatever it is. Give me an outline, give me an idea. It will do that for you. And that is a great jumping off point for actually creating your own content.
The other thing that you see with generative AI is that the longer it goes, the more repetitive it gets.
Yes.
It's kind of like a 6th grade book report for somebody who doesn't read the book. So, hey, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer is about a boy named Tom who has many adventures.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing where they're trying to use the keywords over and over, which kind of gets back to that keyword stuffing idea that we had earlier.
Right.
So there are some good robot things you can do. There's some bad ones too. What shouldn't you use it?
Yeah, so we've covered some of these, but it's the end result of the language that it puts out. It can be kind of stilted, it can be kind of repetitive, but it's also not going to create content from the same framework and foundation that you would as a human. So you're going to have all of these things in your mind about your prospect and what they want. And the AI can only output what you give it. And it's going to be very difficult to give it all of that information. You can give it, as much as possible. But even if I plopped in, if we go way, way back, which we're not going to actually do, but to our marketing manager slide or persona, even if I copy pasted all of that information into an AI and told it like, this is my persona, this is who I'm talking to, you still have more information in your brain about this person than the AI does. And it's going to run into issues anytime there's gaps, or it has to make logical leaps, which we as people and AI have to do all of the time. And it's going to have to try to fill out that information based on what it knows. And that's coming from a huge, wide database versus your brain. You might have insights like, earlier when we're going over that slide, I shared the nugget of, oh yeah, this person is using their laptop during the day versus they're using their cell phone at night. And that's how we got that information. If I just copy pasted that info from the slide into ChatGPT, it doesn't know that. I know that. That's in my brain. And yeah, it it upsets J.J. Abrams and it overlooks the entire point, which is your client. It's just bad form. Think about how you as a person engage with content online. You can probably tell when you're interacting with an AI. The most obvious is if you have ever had to use a chat bot to get some kind of customer service issue resolved. It's extremely frustrating. It does not give a good impression, and it doesn't necessarily endear you to that company when you go through this experience of, I cannot get my question answered. I just want my question answered. It's not happening because they're using an AI, or they're just sending me to their help section. I'm like, I've already been there. I've tried. Looked at all the articles.
So one of the questions we got, I think we kind of covered on how can you use ChatGPT or AI really in general for good content creation?
Yeah, so we did cover some of that. A couple more specifics, use it to create an outline of ideas based on a blog topic. Use it to give you blog title ideas based on a blog that you've written. Talk with it back and forth like you would a person. If you like to bounce ideas off of somebody and you don't have somebody there to bounce ideas off of, I've used ChatGPT for that. Get it to write a blurb based on your idea to give you something to go off of. Or if you've already written something, you can send it to ChatGPT and ask it, summarize this. Or even if you want to see like how good you are at the persona work, ask it, who do you think this blog post is for? Who's the persona for this blog? That's an interesting one to try.
All right, we are 45 minutes in, and we are going to enter in a new phase of the show here today. We are going to go to the lightning rounds. All of the questions that you've asked Jena in lightning fast motion, so that you can get all of your questions answered. Again, reminder, if you are listening online, feel free and add questions, but if you've submitted them, we're going to go through all of them right now.
Yes, because we got a lot. So
a ton of them. Jena, what's the best platform for creating content?
Okay. This is really broad, but generally think about the type of content that you're putting out. So YouTube for videos, or TikTok for short-term videos, WordPress for blogging, or HubSpot, Medium as well for blogging. I knew it was called Medium. I had it in my brain. Canva for social media post creation. And if you're asking, where is the best platform to create content for like distribution purposes, the simple answer is where your audience is spending their time online. So you got to figure that out. And that can be done through research, or the best way is to just ask them, like we talked about when creating personas. Get a bunch of people to tell you, where are you spending your time online? And that does not have to be business related. People tend to intermingle their personal and business lives online interchangeably. So just get that information from them and find out where they are spending their time online specifically.
Next, how do you know your content is great content?
Great question. So there's tangible metrics and the intangible metrics. So the intangible, this is super high level, but do you feel good about what you're putting out there? If you feel bad about something and you really don't like it, that's not a good sign for content. And then like we've gone over extensively and exhaustively in this presentation, is it written for a persona? It's not written for you. I hate to say it. It's not all about you. It's about the person that's going to be interacting with this content. So did you spend a ton of time thinking about them? Were you intentional about it? Or did you just kind of throw something out there? For the tangible metrics to track, this is super high level, depends on your industry, blah, 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 disclaimer. But for email, you want to look at the click-through rate and what specifically they're clicking on. Blogs, overall views, new versus returning visitors, time on page. And for your website, really high level, new versus returning visitors, time on page, average number of pages per session, bounce rate, and then social, comments, shares, and clicks. Views on social, ignore it. They're inflated, not important. You want to look at the actual engagement metrics.
Got it. Henriette asks, how often or at what intervals is it okay to recycle content, specifically on social media? I have an answer there because I know her. But so Henriette's business is based on, you're a little different compared to everybody else, Henriette, because I know you. She runs 2 sales a year. Generally, she takes over a hockey arena. It's a whole thing. It's fantastic. And I've never seen people throw elbows before, like one of those sales. So generally speaking, it's not a great idea to recycle content. In your case, Henriette, it is absolutely a great idea to recycle content. So what I would do if I were you is I would plot out the entire 90 days prior to your sale, figuring out, talking about from a high level. What do you get if you come to our sale? What problem do you solve? All the way down to a couple of days beforehand, if you're getting really nice, really boffo stuff to sell, showcasing that during the sale. Make sure that you've got content going out. So, because you want to continue to have people come in, and then after the fact too, sharing pictures of all sorts of people with big happy garbage bags full of new clothes for their kids. So, in your case, absolutely calendar the whole thing and plot it out so that you can focus on actually doing the work, and you can put your content sort of on autopilot.
Yeah. And with social media in particular, you can get away a lot more with repeating the same thing multiple times. This is so intangible, but you just don't want to be annoying about it. So, you don't want to post 8 times a month on the exact same piece of content. That's irritating. But, once a month on the exact same piece of content, even more frequently than that, you can get away with that.
All right, next question is, how do I evaluate the most effective content for SEO?
Awesome. Okay, so this goes back into that, again, super intangible slide earlier about Google and how they rank websites. If you're looking for more specifics, I have to issue the disclaimer of SEO is a lot less checkboxy than it used to be. So it's more difficult to realistically, have a tool run through your content and tell you this is going to rank for sure versus this is not going to rank, because Google is all about context and trying to give people the best content that they can, which lines up a lot less with, checkboxes. However, that being said, going back to SEMrush or SEMrush, they have a SEO content template and an SEO writing assistant that gives you some of those more concrete jumping off points. So take it with a grain of salt, and it's not a guarantee that you're going to rank, but it's going to give you some more specific guidelines, like, oh, this paragraph is way too long, or you really need a subheading here, that kind of thing.
Awesome. Now we're not lightningly enough. So we have a couple more. How do you create effective newsletters and social media content for advertising?
Okay, newsletters, experiment. I'm going to throw a lot of phrases at you, so look these up. A/B test, A/B test long versus short form content, A/B test image heavy versus text heavy. Just don't do those all at the same time. Social media content for advertising, imagery and video is critical. If possible, strongly recommend investing your time and effort into using your own imagery. Do not use stock photos. Next one.
Everybody in this day and age has an amazing camera in their pocket. There's no excuse for not having good imagery if you're on your own.
Yeah.
Where do I start creating a system for content, and how do I utilize AI in the process? I think we answered the second part first, but how about the first part second?
Yep. Ideal world, you want to do an audit using tools like SEMrush's content audit tool or a free XML sitemap scraper to get started. So that's going to pull every single thing that you have. That's a lot. So in the real world, if you're looking for short-term solutions, starting with a specific product/client focus and working from there. There are AI tools for auditing content. I've tried a bunch of them. I have not been impressed. It tends to not be actually accurate. Like it will say, oh, this page has 300 words on it, so therefore it's a terrible page. But then you actually look at the page and it's like, well, this is a contact us page, so we really don't need a lot of information.
How do you repurpose content?
All right, great question. Start big and then go small. So if you've got okay, here's a couple examples. You got a podcast, turn that podcast into a blog, turn that into emails, turn that into social media posts. You got a blog, turn that blog into a video, and then turn that into email, and then turn that into social media posts. It's easier to start big and go small. There's a lot a lot of blogs on HubSpot with specifics of how to do this, of like how to take a piece of content and how to break it up and repurpose it. Highly recommend. Try to get some links in our follow-up emails for that if possible. I will try to.
Love it. Should content be general in nature or more specific?
You want to try to do both, but realistically, with like time we all have in a day, specific all the way. Way better to be specific.
The riches are in the niches.
Yep.
Be specific, because that's what specific people will look for, but also general to keep people entertained, which is a great non-answer answer.
It's yeah. The truth is there's a ton of content out there and there's a ton of general content. So the more specific you can be, the more you'll stand out.
How do I write great content that aligns with the recent Google search algorithm changes? Seeing a lot of people complaining that their great content is no longer ranking.
Yeah, that goes back to, again, that whole big long article on Google's website about how they rank. But really, Google's algorithmic changes focus less on traditional metrics of SEO to more content that answers questions good. So those are, if you're thinking about like a blog post, for example, you've got a blog post that answers a question. You want to answer that question right away in the beginning so that that can be used as a snippet in SERP, which is the search engine's result page, or as Google's moving to a generative AI search, they're going to be using AI to answer questions. And then the rest of your blog goes into more detail. So you don't want to bury the lead. You don't want to force people to have to dig for stuff. You want to put it right up out front, and then think about how you use search as well. And the types of content, again, we said it's not all about you, but like, you can be a useful jumping off point if you think about, because you are a person. I'm assuming we're all people here. There's no AI on the call other than our recording tool. Think about how you use search and what types of stuff you like to see.
Love it. How do I adjust content so that somebody else writes to get better SEO results?
Oh, really good question. Again, this is tricky to do with modern SEO because there's not that checklist. But like I said earlier, you can use these tools like SEMrush's SEO content template and SEO writing assistant. But generally speaking, things to check off is the title matches the blog topic or content topic. If it has a title, it's broken up into sections with headings and subheadings that match the overall topic and actually describe the section below. So for example, if you're writing a blog and you're breaking out and adding subheadings, instead of having a subheading that's why, maybe it's why SEO matters. It's a little bit more descriptive.
Awesome. Well, our lightning round is ended and we are coming short on time. Thank you so much, Jena. And thank you everybody for your questions, and thank you for listening. So we will be sending you a great content audit tool that will get to your email a little later today. And then if you'd like to check us out next month, we've got a digital marketing trends for 2024 that we're hosting, of what we're seeing as what comes next. And I think AI and video is certainly going to be a big portion of that.
Yes.
Jena, I can't thank you enough for joining. It's so great to see your career path go from newbie to all the way to one of our more senior and valued people. It's a treasure to do this with you, and just from it feels like old times, but also new times as well.
Yes, it's been a journey, and we couldn't get into everything content in here, so we will be sending a follow-up email. If you've got any other questions, feel free to reply to that email. It'll get to somebody back here at BizzyWeb. We can follow up with you.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.